Hi, everyone, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nell Pepper. My pronouns are she and her. For a quick image description, I'm a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I'm wearing a floral patterned blouse and a maroon cardigan. I have glasses with black and red frames, and behind me is a packed bookcase. And on behalf of Harvard Bookstore, I am delighted to introduce this virtual event with Shayda Kafai presenting her book, Crip Kinship, The Disability, Justice, and Art Activism of Sins Invalid, in conversation with Lilac Vylette Maldonado and Vanessa Durand. Thank you so much for joining us virtually tonight. Through virtual events like tonight's, Harvard Bookstore continues to bring authors and their work to our community. Every week, we host events here on our Zoom account. Our fall event calendar continues apace with talks from Will Haygood in conversation with Peter Goralnik, Tracy K. Smith presenting Lucille Clifton's memoir, Generations, and Lydia Davis in conversation with Parul Segal. Please check out the event schedule on our website at harvard.com/events. And while you're there, you can sign up for our email newsletter for more updates. This discussion will conclude with some time for your questions. If you have a question for our speakers at any time during the talk tonight, please send them via the Q&A button wherever it appears on your screen, and we will get through as many questions as time allows. This event will have live captioning and sign language interpretation services with gratitude to Sins Invalid, Visible Voices, and Virtual VRI. In the chat window, I will post a link to purchase copies of Crip Kinship on harvard.com, as well as a link to donate in support of the series and of our store. Your purchases and financial contributions make events like tonight's possible and help ensure the future of a landmark independent bookstore. We thank you so much for showing up and tuning in support of our authors and the incredible staff of booksellers at Harvard Bookstore. We sincerely appreciate your support now and always. And finally, as you likely have experienced in virtual gatherings, technical issues may arise. We hope they don't, but if they do, we will do our best to resolve them quickly. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding. And now I'm very pleased to introduce tonight's speakers. Shayda Kafai is an assistant professor of Gender and Sexuality Studies at California State Polytechnic University, Pomona. As a queer mad femme of color, she commits to enacting the many ways we can reclaim our body minds from intersecting systems of oppression. Lilac Vylette Maldonado is a community organizer and culture worker who identifies as sick and disabled, neurodivergent, two-spirit Chicanx femme. She is a co-founding member of the grassroots disability justice group, Los Angeles Spoonie Collective. They are also in the education team at Fireweed Collective, which offers mental health education and mutual aid. She is also a core member of Mirror Memoirs, an oral history project centering on LGBTQ survivors of color in the movement to end child sexual abuse. And lastly, they are the social media and communications manager for Reclaim Ugly, which serves social justice-minded communities and centers the needs of marginalized people. Vanessa Durand, better known as V, is a 30-something, non-binary, queer, fat femme born and raised in Los Angeles. Their work uses mixed media art and social media platforms to navigate the complexities of being an autistic, mixed race, disabled, and chronically ill glitter goddess who was sent by their ancestors to break generational curses. In 2018, V became the self-published author of 2 books titled I Am Still Blooming, a live flower makeup series on healing and becoming, and makeup and creative advice, tips and affirmations, how to trust yourself and your unique process and purpose. While in quarantine, they recently created a YouTube series titled Makeup and Messages from the Universe. They will be discussing Shayda's new book, Crip Kinship, The Disability, Justice, and Art Activism of Sins Invalid. Crip Kinship explores the art activism of Sins Invalid, a San Francisco Bay Area-based performance project, and its radical reimaginings of what disabled, queer, trans, and gender nonconforming body minds of color can do. The book investigates the revolutionary survival teachings that disabled, queer, of color community offers to all our body minds. Adrienne Marie Brown praises Shayda Kafai in weaving this history, takes a place in the lineage of Crip doulas who help us understand we are whole and different and perfect. I'm so pleased to turn things over to our speakers. The digital podium is yours, Shayda, Lilac, and Vanessa.
Thanks, Nell. Hello, femmes. Before we say image descriptions, I just have to say how big my heart felt listening to bios and just the amazing work y'all do. I'll start. Hi everybody listening and watching. My name is Shayda. I am an olive-skinned femme with pixie cut hair and my bangs going to the left. I have super deep magenta lipstick on that's called Accept a Dare. Metallic geometric blue earrings, a collared button down tank top with let's say copper stripes. I have tattoos on both my arms, and I'm sitting in my office surrounded by frames and plant babies and a lamp in the back. Oh, Lilac, I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. I had it on mute. There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Lilac Vylette Maldonado. I am coming to you from Tongva Chumash land in Los Angeles. And I am wearing, I am a light olive tone, I suppose, of femme. I have short, maybe shoulder length, bob kind of hair with a headband of that's a red floral print, a red headband with floral print on it, tied up in kind of like a 50s pinup girl style. And then I have these black Tom Ford glasses, which are my favorite thing I ever bought myself. They're black with gold frames, and I'm wearing a lipstick from Bite. It's called Orange Fizz. It's like a creamy lip stain. And I have on a Frida Kahlo choker and a white blouse with ruffly trim on it. And I'm sitting in my bedroom, which has a grayish tone to it with one darker wall in the back. And there's lots of frames, pieces of art and photographs in the background, in a little wall altar on my wall. Just my cat in the background, and just chilling in my bedroom. So that's my image description.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. You can call me V if you'd like. So I am a light-skinned femme person, sitting at my desk in my bedroom. It is a tad bit dark in my room. Yeah, because it's 1,000,000 degrees today. So the lighting is mysterious. And I am wearing a 1950s inspired top that is bright yellow. This is my happy color. And I love that it has a couple of ruffled sleeves, and you can kind of see my tattoos on my right arm. I have long brown hair that goes pretty much to the middle of my chest. And in my background, you can kind of see that there are some of my favorite lipsticks and glosses and glitters, and an ornate mirror in the back, along with one of Shayda's art prints of a person with flowers for their head, wearing a shirt that says "No More Spoons," and I love that. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all so much for joining and just having an amazing, I'm sure, conversation about the book and just disability justice. And so really excited to have you both here.
So excited.
I'm so grateful for the invitation. Thank you so much. I admire the both of you very much. So I'm very blessed to be here with you.
Heart.
So how would you all like to start?
I just I've been thinking a lot about just the portion of the book. There was a part that talked about it was referencing Mia Mingus's blog, Leaving Evidence, and just it the way that you talked about it was like we are not only leaving behind evidence, but we are evidence. And I think about that in so many different ways. And I've been, it's been really like in my mind a lot, like as I've been reading that, how we are like very much like canaries in the coal mine as sick and disabled people. Like we are like symptoms of things that are, very broken in our society, but also we are like, at the same time, like disability is also like part of like such a beautiful biodiversity of who we are as people. So I think that there's just like so many ways that people can look at that, leaving behind evidence. And I think that really just like whose evidence is worthy of being observed in the public eye. I think like that is really what humanizes people, right, within art. And so like I think that idea of leaving behind evidence, and that we have the right to say that we've existed and we've loved and we've struggled and all those different things, as you like really eloquently write in the book. I think that it's really something that stuck with me, the idea of like, why am I creating all of these things? I think that it is something deep inside to say like I've left something here, and I only may be one link in the chain. I may not be, I'm not trying to like everyone has their place in the movement, right? But I want to be acknowledged for the fact that I was here and that I contributed, and that that I decided to make my life, in this way,
Yeah, I'm glad that you're starting in that place of evidence, leaving. One of the questions that was kind of in my mind with the start of the book was Kristen Dufour's question, D-U-F-O-U-R. And her big question was like, what can art do? And then that kind of clashed with, Mia Mingus's blog and this idea that maybe art and storytelling, which is so critical for Sins Invalid, maybe that's one of the powerful ways that we leave reminders to community and kin, but other folks that maybe are from outside the community, that we were here and our stories are valid. So I'm glad that you're like starting the conversation off at this place of storytelling and art making as proof and existence.
Can I also just take it like one step further? in addition to everything that y'all are saying, I also feel like just allowing ourselves to be here, to be fully present in our bodies, in our lives, whatever that may look like at any given time, like that truly is like my soul work. Yeah, I think it's amazing that we see things physically and experience things physically in this life, and like all the while the energy that we put into our art and sharing that with others, and the reciprocity of energy exchange as well, as it's intended to be felt, is like doing work in other parts of the universe, if that makes any sense at all. Like, I feel like in other realms, in other times of, space and dimensions and whatnot, there is healing happening on many different levels, like for our souls individually, but also for our queer families, our chosen families, our queer disabled ancestors, and everything else. So.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I think what I'm just to build off of what you're saying, it's kind of like acknowledging that like the purpose of well, like maybe the purpose of living as a Crip person is to, I think for many of us, I think for me, I'll speak for myself, is I want to leave behind evidence and leave a legacy, but I also want to honor the life that I'm living now. And I want to honor the very visceral experience that I'm having now. And sometimes we forget about that because as we talked about as Shayda says in the book about Crip erasure, like you forget that you are even living now because you are so focused on the fact that everyone has been telling you that, you should be focusing on, like, you shouldn't be here and you're, you should be focusing on your demise or something like that, so that you can think after the fact of, of leaving something behind. But I think that one of the great things about SINS and a lot of the work that the art activism that like all kinds of Crip creative folks do, and is like access art as not just like a mode for like storytelling, but also like, which is like for sharing or disseminating our work, but also for like the embodied experience of creating art and what that does for us as people, and how that ties us to the present and the moment, and allows us to be mindful and present in ways that oftentimes are stolen from us, and allows us to kind of like reconnect with, our body minds in ways that feel healthy for us, and that I think is forgotten a lot, that we deserve to live lives that are full and beautiful and have rich experiences, also, and that we have a right to enjoy all the parts of life that are, beautiful and complex that everyone else gets to have access to. And yeah, that's what I love about Crip art activism.
I think a lot about how the beginning of SINS Invalid was supposed to be like a one-time gathering of friends and Crip family, and it grew from that place because everybody expressed need for that kind of, recognition, proof of existence, proof of beauty and pleasure and sensuality and all of those amazing things. And I mean, one of the things that I'm wondering is like, when did you all first find Crip family, or what were your first like Sins Invalid viewing experiences like? I know for myself, it was like at my computer in my bedroom, at home, you know, but it was this private moment of like connectivity. But yeah, I'm just wondering, like, when did you all find Crip, queer, gender nonconforming, trans of color, like kinship, and what did it look like, feel like for you?
I feel like I found my community and like soul family and friends and just like everyone that really has transformed my life for the better. I have found on Tumblr and Instagram years and years and years ago. And thank goodness for those sites, because in many ways, Tumblr literally is just like you documenting anything that you want from all over the world. People from all over the world are posting how they feel, their research, news events, but also just like pictures of themselves. And I remember being in my last year of my bachelor's degree in like 2012-ish, and just feeling so alone and discouraged. And then I saw people posting pictures about them being fat femmes and them being like disabled femmes. And then I began to think like, so there's other people that like exist in this world, and they're also in LA, and they're also just like, you know, connected to every other network of queer people. So yeah, just having the audacity to exist, but just putting yourself on display as though you know, Tumblr and sites like that were like visual art galleries. And that was really, really powerful, because those were things that I saw online but never in person.
Yeah, online spaces really saved my life, to be honest, and gave me the community that I really needed. And it's really hard because being somebody who is isolated, not just in the fact that I'm isolated because I'm disabled and I'm like homebound a lot, like, but I'm also just isolated from community because I don't like fit into like, you know, trans and queer spaces a lot of times, you know, and I don't usually, I have always had a hard time finding, you know, like my people, but I remember in 2014, an organization that I used to be a part of called Trans Folks Fighting Eating Disorders, which is now organization called Fed Up, which is, I think it's called Fighting Eating Disorders Among Underrepresented Populations. And it is an organization that was at the time started by a friend of mine named Dagan Vandermark, and Jaden Fields, who is now co-director of Mirror Memoirs, Ducky Vega, who is consulting now, and then in Ethan Lopez. And we had a community healing, healing intensive, which is a workshop that we threw here in LA, which is like it was basically like we did it for ourselves, and we're all like had disabilities in our own way, but it was like I'd never seen a place before where we had like to create it for ourselves, you know, and we invited people from all over community, and we raised the money for it to pay, like I think we paid the presenters for a workshop like $50 each, and we got everyone. My friend was a sex worker, and they got one of their one of their clients to pay for the food for the thing. And so and it was just like very like community doing for themselves. Like, we're not going to wait for anyone to come and save us. We're going to do this for ourselves. And there I got to meet somebody who is now a transgender whose name is Kaite Davidson. And I was assisting him. He's a Black trans guy, originally from Chicago, who changed my life. And in that like 50 to 60-minute presentation that he gave on DJ 101, and it kind of just like, I was sitting there with my mouth agape, like not knowing what I had just stumbled upon. And now, because it had never occurred to me that people could live like me, who are angry about what was going on, but wanted to do things together in this way that was just really amazing. It's just kind of like, it opened me up to new things. And from him, I got to meet Kay Lundeberg, who is a part of SINS, and all other people from SINS. I got to read more stuff. And then Tumblr also, there was like a lot of places like that celebrated disability and fatness, and just like really just gave people a place that just kind of like, it was a public square where people could really just like be themselves, and you can find anything you wanted there. There was just like any kind of nook of community. It was like a really like a safe place. That it was a safe place to, it was, I wouldn't say safe place, but it was definitely had its issues. All places do, but there was so much wonder to be discovered there, as far as like how much it opened my eyes. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of, for so many folks, myself included, and it sounds like for us too, a big part of SINS Invalid's work that opened space for us, both like internal loving space and ways to review ourselves and like reconnect with ourselves, but also to like connect with community, was disability justice. I know that disability justice was the first time I learned about interdependence. You know, this like really great idea that actually we're not independent, and independence is connected to ableism and all other sorts of oppression. And in fact, we need each other to survive, which is why I'm so glad that y'all are focusing on and talking about like digital crip space and the different types of like affirmation and recognition they offer. But yeah, that was just such an important realization and exploration for myself, was learning about disability justice through SINS Invalid's organizing and art making.
I also learned about disability justice for the first time from Kaite at a conference in LA for, I can't remember the name of the organization, but it was life altering to meet Kaite, and I'm so freaking thankful that I did. He transformed the way that I think about disability, and how it's not like a dirty word. It's not like a mean thing to say, because I remember he corrected someone who was saying that there were differently abled people at the conference. And I remember just being like, that is such a weird thing to say. And it also just like implies that being disabled is mean or bad to say, and like, how could you possibly claim that in a positive way? But hearing Kaite talk about identifying as disabled and also having disabled friends, and like understanding each other's needs and respecting just what they do and what they bring into our lives, and really just a lot of people who are absolutely profoundly wonderful are always in the background, or ignored, silenced, and yeah, that changed the way that I saw myself, and how I identified. And yeah, there was something else I was going to talk about, but I can do it later. Can I ask a question? Okay.
Absolutely.
So, okay. I wrote down this before the meeting started, but what role does makeup play in your gender identity, activism, and art? To both of you, because I know this is something we have in common.
Love, I love that question so much. I think that for me, makeup was my first like deliberate step outside of the gender box. It was my first foray into like actually marking myself as femme in public. And it, I think for me, it has both like it's both like a celebration and also um an armor in some ways, you know. And it's something that you like apply. I think there's so much sense, let me see, there's so much sense of like self-authorship and self-agency in makeup. You know, you get to decide what goes on your face. You get to decide, you know, how you're going to, you know, highlight or shadow certain things and what you're gonna manifest there. It is you like manifesting like all of the things that you know, how you want to be perceived in the world, the way that you, I think, especially when if you're like doing like a playful look or something like where you are allowing yourself to just like have that space to go there, you know, it just it allows you to like activate a whole part of yourself where it's like if you're like reminding yourself who you are, you know, and you go out there in the world with that makeup on and you feel like no matter what anyone tells you, it's kind of like a reminder, you know, when you look in the mirror of this is who I am, you know, this is who I am. This is, and I get to say who I am because I put this on my face. And that's how it, for me, as somebody who is like trans and two-spirit, like it's been like before before I could start hormones, before I could start wearing, you know, before I could start amassing the clothing, before I had anything, you know, any of those other things, which are really great, but like makeup was the first like I guess step out the door, and it for me it really has been made a difference.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Shayda.
I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about, like I obviously I really appreciate, Lilac, your framing of autonomy, right? And choice. And I'm thinking about, in this conversation, I'm thinking about Sins Invalid's work around beauty and how beyond something that is usually thought about or talked about as a superficial element, which I think, like Vanessa, is like where your question's taking us, right? Like, how can we look and think about beauty outside of cis heteronormativity and outside of ableism and capitalism and racism, right? I'm thinking about how Sims Invalid's work on beauty is an attempt to open those spaces to us and have us think about beauty outside of those frameworks. And so that was the thing that came to mind is, you know, one of the reasons why it's worked into their mission and their value statement is because disabled folks haven't been given access to beauty, which is why the claiming of it is so, and the autonomy around it is so critical. Yeah, I'm also thinking about a quote, Lilac, that you pulled out. I think this was from Lilac Vylette Maldonado around beauty, but just the idea of reclaiming something that has been distanced from communities and really adopting it for self and for transformative change and as an act of liberation. All of those things are coming to mind and thinking around why beauty is important for disabled, queer, gender nonconforming, trans folks of color.
Yeah, one thing that we were talking about when we were prepping for this meeting was like beauty, and it's tied to dreaming and all, how dreaming is like a Crip liberated space, and how it's a place where we can really access and manifest like parts of our, you know, deep parts of ourselves and our desires and I've been thinking a lot about like how like so much of our work has been like, and so many of our movements still, like I think about like, I belong to quite a few, like you heard in my bio, them rattle off a few like grassroots organizations, and we're all being held together with like chewing gum and paper clips and a lot of willpower. But it's because of, you know, of the dreaming that we have, you know, the visioning for our future that we have, that is really what has given us the capacity to I guess like come into this movement with such impact. And I think about the work of Tourmaline, who is she's a trans woman who is a filmmaker and artist who has released who has done films like Happy Birthday Marsha, and has books like Trapdoor, and is recently at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City with her film series and art, and her art there, and she has a permanent exhibit there, and part of her work that she does is she references freedom dreaming, and that comes from like the freedom schools of the 1960s, and people like Fannie Lou Hamer, who's like a disabled ancestor, you know, basically taught people, you know, like the importance of, you know, like that dreaming was the only way that the enslaved had to vision something bigger, and they had no framework for how they would like build, you know, a future. But from this dreaming, they built things like Seneca Village in New York City, which is like a town of enslaved folks, formerly enslaved folks living in Manhattan, who built their own community and were able to do so. And so we do things similarly, like with our work, and something that I was really reading from some of the questions I was reading from Tourmaline's Vogue interview, and she asked the three questions that Freedom Schools asked is, what is the dominant culture that we want? What does the dominant culture have that we want? What does the dominant culture have that we don't want? And what do we have that we want to keep? And so that those three questions kind of make me think of like how do we, like, because of our adaptivity as Crips, you know, how do we get to like scrap and reconnoiter like kind of like a future out of you know, like the wreckage of the present, and what finer example of a present that it's a wreckage than right now. You know, we're literally in this moment, in this very hour, dreaming up our futures, you know, and I'm excited to see what we will dream up next.
Yeah, and actually this aligns so nicely with one of the first questions I just saw. It's like 15 minutes until we end. So one of the questions in the chat, the first one is, are there precedents, either literal or spiritual, to Sins Invalid? Was there a foundation in the Bay Area or elsewhere that Sins Invalid built on? And I think your comment is making me think and like call forward anti-racist organizing, transformative justice, and also the dream work of specific communities of color. And, you know, the other big thing that was so foundational for Sins Invalid was they were located in the Bay Area, and there's so much disability organizing, activism, access in general in the city. And, you know, in addition to what were the movements that sustained them, I mean, the people that started Sins Invalid also dreamed up in alliance with other folks, disability justice. And so that's one of the main like tethers, roots to their art making and organizing, is this practice that is very different from the mainstream disability rights movement, which, like, full disclosure, like, I wouldn't be here with everybody today. We all wouldn't be here without the organizing, right, of the mainstream disability rights movement. But disability justice holds space for a conversation of disability and folks of color, disability and queer, transgender, nonconforming folks, incarcerated folks that are disabled, immigrant folks that are disabled.
Yeah, like especially like I think a lot of it leans on heavily on Black feminist thought. There's a lot of like organizing that, like, just like where we get a lot of like pop, like a lot of the words that we have like today that are common, like intersectionality, which comes from Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw Williams, or words like identity politics, which comes from the Calhue Collective, I believe, in Ohio. And there's like other kinds of like, there's a lot of things that have come from Audre Lorde, things that have come from Fannie Lou Hamer. And so we like lean heavily on these folks who have like really like taught us the way, like people like Marsha P. Johnson, you know, so all these different like folks, I think, have like lined the way. And I think it's important to say that like the work of Sins, the work of disability justice is not in a silo. We lean heavily upon each other, you know, and just like back in the disability rights movement, like they, you know, like leaned upon the Black Panthers, you know, and there's all of these communities, you know, like have like learned from each other, and, you know, and so I think that what we're trying to say is that like also like not to think of it as just a DJ movement. Like the DJ movement is splendid, but it's also a DJ movement is part of like a larger movement, you know, a part of like just the part of the immigrant rights movement, part of the abolition movement. So I think we all are like working and learning in tandem.
Yeah, cross movement organizing is such an important principle. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. And so, hi, I'm popping back on to read some more of the questions. Next one that comes up is a question for the three panelists. What are the ways that Sins influenced your art making, organizing, and teaching research? However anyone wants to address any version of those words.
That's a delicious question. Thank you for asking that, anonymous attendee. Vanessa, I think you were unmuting yourself, so if you want to go first.
I muted myself just in case you wanted to talk about that. I would love to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Like, I feel like we ran out of so much time. I just want to be like super generous with like our speaking space. You know, when I think about Sins Invalid and their disability justice practices, that most certainly not only taught me to be more compassionate with myself, but then it became a question of like, how can I take disability justice into the classroom? And, you know, exercise these practices and really introduce a large community to why we need disability justice. So whether it's principles like interdependence and just reminding folks like we all rely on each other to survive and to move toward liberation, or whether it's the practice of like sustainability, and we have every right to say when we're exhausted, and when we need a break, and when our body minds are requesting that we are in need of really considering how much capacity we're putting forward. So like in the classroom, that's like daily check-ins with everybody, like, hey, what is your spoon or capacity count? How do we need to move through the content today? If I'm having a high depression, high anxiety day, I have the strength now through my work with disability justice and other elements to say, this is what I need from you, which then opens up space for students to say, and this is what I need in class. Do we need to cut down the reading? Do we need to shorten assignments? Do we need to extend deadlines? Like all of those are gifts from disability justice and since Invalid.
Yeah, I think as an organizer, I think that the only thing that I can do to really encourage people to, I guess, like take up the mantle of disability justice is to like live the principles of disability justice, you know, and try to like be an example of what it can be like to organize, you know, according to these statutes that we, you know, that we think are super, I think based in justice and based in the world that we want to see. So I think that the things I can do most is try to internalize, you know, like the principles like sustainability and, you know, interdependence, and just also like I think how it's really impacted me in a really massive way was just to see that, just to I think just to see that there are other people, I think that who are out there, who are like me, who also wanted to like live full and delicious lives just like I did, you know, and who wanted to, you know, who refused to be tethered down to what the world told them that they could be, you know, and also reminded me that we've been here all along, you know, and kind of like tied the pieces together. And that storytelling part is really, I think, has allowed me to share those stories with community. I think that's how that story sharing element, I think, has been super like important for me, and has given me, I guess, being able to see like how they have put forward, how they've done their work, has been giving me like a little bit more like of the guts I needed to do my own, you know, seeing other people out there, possibility models, you know, and, you know, like just like people who can show me that I can also contribute and do things that I, you know, like that, those things I think have been valuable for me from that lessons from sins.
All right. I think, and we have time for, we're getting some great questions. So if it's possible for all of you, I think if we could extend this by like at least a few minutes just to get to some of these questions, I think that it would be great. I don't want to impose, but I think it would be great if we could run a little bit long. So we have a question, next one from an anonymous attendee. Do you have any suggestion for an easy thing to read or watch that the questioner can give to able-bodied folks to increase awareness of what, as they say, people of color Crips have to overcome?
Oh, yes. That's a phenomenal question. And I've been really amplifying this text in all the talks. So I typed in an answer. If you click on the Q&A box and go to the answer, the very last one, Sins Invalid wrote the first primer to disability justice, and it was gathering. Yes, you, Lilac just put it on the screen. It's called Skin, Tooth, Bone, the Basis of Movement is Our People. This is the second edition. And the writing of this is really not just what is disability justice, why is it important, who is it important for, and how can we make all of our movements accessible. To make the second primer, they kind of did this huge poll of community and were like, hey, what was the first edition missing? What do we need to talk about? And it's very accessible. You can buy it on a sliding scale basis. And the link is sinsinvalid.org. So that's like a phenomenal book. If you are curious about disability justice, want to learn more, know of someone who might be interested, because it really touches on, Lilac, you were talking about the tradition of like the Combahee River Collective, anti-racist abolitionist work, like they work all of that into the telling of what's the history of disability justice. So that's like my number one text that I would recommend you go to, especially because it's very, it's not just about disability justice, but it was written according to the praxis of disability justice, which is community first.
Yeah, and if you want something quick and dirty, I can recommend to you this zine that I wrote. It's called Access Granted, and I'll give you image description. It is a paper zine that has words access granted and different symbols for a wheelchair, like has a human brain inside of a head, has hands for ASL, and somebody walking with a cane. And it's an illustrated guide to disability solidarity. And it's something I've written and illustrated, and it's just like a quick guide for like how to stand in solidarity with disabled folks and mostly people of color. And I have like illustrations in here. As you can see, it's a pencil illustration of somebody having a conversation with somebody who's deaf and their ASL interpreter, and kind of like some of the snafus that people like encounter when dealing with us, and especially when like organizing spaces and different things like that. So I have like all kinds of different resources on there. And then I have like in the back, I have more resources that are available in most, and actually SINS is in there. And so it's a lot of different people who are from the SINS community, like Nev and Kay and a few different people. So if you're interested in that, you can look on my Instagram, and it's at boldly.fem, and you can look and see more about that.
Awesome. Amber, do we have time for one more question, or do you have to go? One more? Okay. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask, we have, oh, where did it go? Where's Adrian's question? Oh, here we go. Oh, all right. And and Shayda already answered it. Okay. Thank you so much. So the question, just I'll read it out for the audience, and Shayda's answer, she typed it in. What could or would it be like to have disability justice culture fully a part of broader theater and performance community? Do you have dreams, asks, complaints, or more to share on this? And Shayda responded, such a good question. Dreams made manifest by SINS that I would love to see everywhere are ASL, scent-free, quiet room, roomy seats for all bodies, audio descriptions, gender-neutral restrooms. Yeah, what a concept, right? I think, is there more maybe briefly that either V or Lilac, that either of you would like to add to that?
More Crip characters playing non-Crip specific roles. I got to see the Aladdin Broadway, part of the Atlanta Broadway show, and there was somebody who played like I guess like they were like they played like they were part of the ensemble, and they were in a power chair. And they always had some of the most creative ways of incorporating them into like making them a vendor on an elephant or something like that, having different ways to have them incorporated. But even just having us in the production and having an accessible stage, I think as somebody who's worked in theater before, is really important.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think we are going to have to end it there. I think. Thank you all so much. This was awesome. Thanks to everyone for joining us at home. Thank you, Amber, and thanks, Nicole, also, if you're listening on. Yes, just I don't know, I guess I'm speaking on behalf of the audience now, but I learned a lot and feel really inspired, and yeah, beauty for everybody. What a concept. Just yeah. So thank you. And I'm going to post, I think I posted the link in the chat, both to the books that were recommended, but I'm going to also post one more time the link to buy Crip Kinship.
Can I just like send all the love and gratitude to Vanessa and Lilac so much for
Absolutely.
for organizing, and all of our lovely Access folks for being here. This was a true joy. And
It's an
I'm
Thank you so much.
yeah,
Thank you so much to everyone who made this happen.
Excellent. Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so
Thanks
much.
to all of you. I'm going to close it there. So on behalf of Harvard Bookstore in Cambridge, Mass, have a good night. Keep reading. Stay safe and well. And thank you all so much for coming. Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everyone for coming and watching.